very much for giving me the opportunity to present my research today. So the topic is Leave No Money on the Table. This is a co-work with Alexander Gros from Lyon Business School France, Aurélie Sana-Just from Tech Business School France, and Denis Schweitzer from Concordia University in Canada. So the topic is about venture capital and the special purpose acquisition companies. So most recently, so SPAC is something new. It's been there around for a couple of years now. However, we've seen a rise in the number of SPACs being going to the market in most recently. And venture capital obviously discovered this as a new opportunity to exit some of their portfolio companies. So for the ones of you who have not been heard about SPACs, SPACs are special purpose acquisition companies. Those are kind of blank check companies. So they're going on the market with just money. So it's kind of a shell company. There is no any actual manufacturing or anything. They just have the idea to find a target which they can merge with, which is a private company. And this private company, in the moment where it merges with a company, is on the market. So basically, the private company, which is merging with SPAC, saves a lot of money on going and doing the IPO process themselves. So obviously, having this shell company, this seems to be an opportunity for venture capital funds to bring some of their portfolio companies public without going through the initial IPO process. So they don't need a prospectus, they can save on legal fees and a lot of time. So the question now would be, is a SPAC now an interesting exit possibility for VC funds to exit more quickly young successful companies, or is it rather something they're using to get rid of the lemons in their portfolios? Okay. So there's been a lot of research around SPACs, around legal aspects, around incentive issues, agency problems, etc. And as I mentioned in this research, we are focusing on the role of venture capitalists using SPACs as an exit possibility. Right. So those are the two research questions. So is SPACs using as an opportunistic behavior? So either on the one hand side, to exit young successful companies, or on the other hand side, are venture capitalists using this to exit one of their lemon firms, their portfolio. So we have been collecting data. So we compiled a list of all SPACs listed in the year starting with 2006. We got all the remaining accounting data, IPO-related data from Refinitiv. We filled up the gaps in data with FactSet and with Google searches. So as you can see, our sample is comprised of 1,600 IPOs slash SPACs. Some of them are VC backed and some of them are not. And we're covering the period 2016 to 2022. And here comes the very interesting parts. We did an event study, and as we are interested on the long-term performance, so the 3/4 of a year, 1 year performance, we calculated the buy and hold returns, and as you can see, there are obviously different parts depending on which kind of sample we are looking at. So what you can see here is IPOs which are backed by VC funds, SPACs, and SPACs which are backed by VC funds or which are exiting basically VC portfolio companies. And as you can see, regular IPOs, whereas the upline, which is the only one in our sample which still has an outperformance, is a VC-backed IPO. So it is an IPO of a company from a VC fund originally. So obviously this seems to be successful companies in the portfolio of the VC. If you look at the two bottom lines, the yellow and the red one, those would be SPACs. So those are the shell companies after they merged with the company. And from the performance, you can see it's up to minus 51% as compared to the S&P 500. They're doing pretty badly. So it seems SPACs in the first place are not a really successful endeavor. And if they now combine this with the VC portfolio company, you see the underperformance pretty good. So the red line you're going to see there is a VC SPAC going public. Next slide. Just we did some through the analyze and calculated the buy and hold returns. For the 180-day period, which is roughly 3/4 of a year. And what we can see here, if a SPAC is doing its IPO or de-SPAC, we usually would refer to that as a de-SPAC, we on average see an underperformance of 42% relative to the S&P 500. If we are isolating what is happening if a VC does an IPO or a de-SPAC, then we are seeing an outperformance of approximately 17%. So exiting the VC fund exit itself is not a negative trend; it's positive. So VC funds have a reputation, and if they go public on the long run, they are doing roughly 17%. However, if you're now splitting it up in a combination VC fund, SPAC, and a VC fund which is exiting their portfolio companies through a SPAC, we are seeing something very interesting. The SPAC itself has an underperformance of 23%, the VC back having an outperformance of 10%, and now is an interesting part. If you combine a VC fund with a SPAC company, this gives us an extra underperformance of nearly 30%. So obviously it seems there's some evidence that VC funds try to get rid of their lemons through the SPAC shell companies. So we did we used some controls on right, and this is seems to be a robust result. Next slide. Now we obviously would be interested in what is the reason why a VC company would exit their portfolio companies through the SPAC. So now we isolated this sample and you're only looking at VC-back exit. So either a VC-back exit through an IPO or a VC-back exit through a de-SPAC. So here we're doing a logistic regression where the dummy variable is we are exiting through a SPAC. And now we're looking at some fundamental information. So in a pre-analysis, we found the portfolio of companies which are exiting through SPAC or through IPO itself do not differ in how old they are, how many investors we have, what is the money invested in it. So it seems on first glance, those kind of firms are pretty much the same, independent if they're exiting through a SPAC or through an IPO. But if we have a closer look at the performance of the distinct portfolio companies, we see a big difference. And we see that portfolio companies which are exited through SPAC are on average smaller. They are also having less data. They don't get debt, so no bank is willing to give debt, and no private investor willing to give debt. They are less efficient with regards to asset turnover. Their market-to-book ratio is low, which is a good indication about expected future performance. So investors are not really optimistic about the future of the firm, which is also reflected in analyst forecasts. So analyst forecasts expected EBITDA are on average lower. The quick ratio, which is an indicator for cash holdings or liquidity, is lower, and so is also the expected performance. So what we see in this profit analysis is that portfolio companies which are exited through the SPAC on average are doing worse than the if it would be exited through the IPO. So this is pretty strong evidence that VC funds are using the vehicle of SPAC to get rid of their bad lemons. Next slide. So in the financial analysis, we are combining to see in a red race which is the most strong characteristic which makes VC companies exit through SPAC, and we find it market to book ratio, and debt ratio. So if a firm is not in the position that they're going to receive debt from outside, if investors are not optimistic about the future performance, then on average you would see that VC companies tend to exit through SPAC. So summarizing the research, we find there is obviously some opportunistic behavior here in play. So we see back funds are not doing anything random when they are thinking of exiting their companies, either via an IPO or via a SPAC, and we find that VC companies do not leave a single cent on the table. So if they're having successful companies, they are cashing in themselves by doing an IPO by themselves. If they have a limit in the portfolio which they can't get rid of any other way, they are getting the SPAC to do the IPO for them, and then the SPAC comes with a strong outperformance, so underperformance. So what we find here is there is kind of a, I don't really call it a scam, but obviously it's not really investor friendly what they are doing by getting rid of the underperforming portfolio companies. Thank you very much. I'm open for any questions.